Hi, I am so excited to be here with you guys tonight. It's about 5 o'clock, and tonight I really wanted to come on and talk to you about something that I keep getting asked about a lot, which is I want to start a business. Maybe I have an idea or I don't have an idea, but is it a good idea, right? So tonight I thought I would come on and just kind of talk to you guys a little bit about how to develop a business idea, and then kind of ways to help like brainstorm that idea as well as to validate the business idea. And to be honest with you, the validating part is actually more important than the brainstorming part sometimes, because you want to find out, like, is your idea good or not, right? So starting a business obviously begins with a great idea. And it's so funny because I watch all these shows and I'm big into documentaries, and I watch these business owners that have been around for years, or products that have been around for years, that it started with something. They weren't sure exactly what it was going to be, but they kept fumbling around, and then all of a sudden they had their eureka moment. They're like, oh my God, this completely worked for them, right? Think about like Heinz ketchup. They were literally just trying to create something else that could sit in a bottle and have a shelf life, right? And they weren't sure how they were going to do it, but it worked for them. And now Heinz owns almost everything. So your ideas are good. We just have to figure out how to put them all together and make them streamlined, that strategy behind it. So let's kind of talk through this a little bit here. So obviously when we are looking at a viable business concept, it definitely requires a lot of creativity, some critical thinking, and a bit of strategic planning. And that's actually really where I love to jump into specific areas, like with my clients. I love to work with them on the planning piece of it, because it's just really fun to me. So whether you're really budding, you're like a brand new entrepreneur, or even if you're an entrepreneur already, but you're trying to figure out how to pivot, maybe you're an online business owner, and you're trying to get a brick and mortar, or vice versa, right? All of this is definitely very helpful to kind of go through this specific strategy. So you kind of want to work through that. So I just want to give you guys some tips. So obviously if you are brainstorming a business idea, you're going to want to start with a couple things. First, you're going to want to figure out to identify your passions and your skills. And there's a sweet spot here. So there's so many things that are good that you can do, that you love to do, right? Maybe you're a painter, maybe you're a baker, maybe you are an accountant, you love numbers, maybe you love to read, right? But there's probably a sweet spot here. Like if you combined all of those skills, there's probably one thing here. It's like, well, maybe I really like to take pictures. I love to take pictures of baking, and I love to take pictures of sewing, and I love to take pictures of all the other things, right, that I just mentioned. And so that sweet spot could be taking pictures, right? The other idea here is that even for myself, when I was going through because I did this exercise as well, and when I went through that exercise specifically, it's like, okay, well, I had an experience with childcare, and I loved working with them, and I loved creating content, like curriculum plans for them. And then I also loved business, and I loved coming up with strategy specifically for them. And then with in network marketing, I absolutely loved sales, and I loved putting on events, and I loved going to conferences. And so what I had to do was I kind of had to figure out how to identify that sweet spot. That sweet spot to me was definitely the strategic planning piece. I loved sales, I loved marketing, and I loved planning. And that to me was my sweet spot. That's kind of where I overlapped specifically in there. So identify your skills and your passions. Start with yourself, really reflect on those interests, those hobbies, those professional skills, all of that experience that you've had, all those jobs that either you've quit or you've gotten fired, or maybe you're still at, right? Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, all of that is still kind of the same. But those have specific skills that you have gained inside of each of those that can definitely help you launch into this new business, right? It'll help you get to those ideas. So your business should definitely align with what you are passionate about, and keep this really, it'll help you keep motivated throughout all like the inevitable changes of entrepreneurship. Because here's the thing, is that not every day is going to be rainbows and butterflies, right? There's going to be days that are really hard. So if you can continue to do something that you absolutely love and show up for, it's going to be a lot easier to show up and continuously do that consistently. So for me, I love coaching. It's something I could coach all day, all night, and it doesn't bother me, or work on something towards that. And that's just what I like, right? But if you ask me to go do lawn work, like go outside and like mow the yard and pull the weeds and do the other things, I can do it for a while. but I'm going to get really bored. I'm going to get really frustrated. I'm going to get really high, and I'm going to quit. So do not ask me to help you start a yard business. I'm probably not going to be the girl to go out there to help you do that, right? But there's the other piece here where it's like, hey, if you have a problem, let's solve it, right? And this is the second piece to this, is you want to solve a problem. So most of the best business ideas have actually arisen by solving common problems, right? Think about the scrunchie. The scrunchie actually was created to really not crimp your hair or pull it out like a rubber band does. And it actually was able to be convenient and be able to wrap around you without like cutting off your circulation. It was created to solve a problem. So you want to make sure that your businesses or your business idea as well is helping solve that problem. So look around, identify the pain points that you or others are actually encountering in your daily life, and try to solve that. So this could be an inconvenience, a gap in the market, or even like an inefficiency to an existing product or service. So I always I had a client this morning I was speaking with, and we're like, okay, go back to where you were 12 years ago on your journey, and what were the pieces that were missing that you had to keep searching for? Like, you couldn't just buy one book, you had to buy lots of books. You couldn't buy just one program, you had to buy a lot of programs. Like, what was it that was missing that you were continuing to look for because it just wasn't sticking correctly? You weren't getting the right information to be able to move that forward. So start there. A business that addresses a real need is actually more likely to succeed than one that is just maybe not sure. Like, you're kind of a boutique of everything, right? So try to solve that one specific need for that person. Next thing is research market trends. Okay, so stay informed, you guys, about industry trends and emerging markets. Read up on like industry reports, like what are the best businesses that are going to be popping up, like what are the business needs. I've shared this before, back about 18 years ago when I was looking to decide what college I was going to go to. I started doing research, like what careers were going to be like the most successful in 2010 at that time, right? Which seemed insane because it was like 2002. I was like, okay, like what's going to be the best businesses that are going to be out there? Like who's going to need what, right? There's always healthcare. There's always, taxes. There's always, these normal specific kinds of things. But one thing that struck me was coaches and consultants. They said, hey, the economy is going to go down. Businesses are going to need to figure out how to restart. We're going to have more businesses starting over the years because technology was improving. And I decided to ditch the art therapy degree, and I went straight into industrial and organizational psychology because I wanted to be able to consult. So that was kind of part of that piece. No, you don't need a degree to consult. Seems like a lot of people do it these days, but I went the educational route, and then I also applied it as I went. So just in case you're wondering. All right, so research those market trends. Go look, find out what businesses, what products, what types of industries are going to be the most popular over the next 10 years. And I always use 10 as the kind of minimum or like the max there, because you don't want to go more than that, because you really don't know what 20 years can look like. But within the next 10 years, we have a really good idea of where we're going, right? Anything in technology right now is booming. Anything in healthcare is booming, as always. Anything that has to do with skincare or feeling better, any of those things, a lot of the personal items as well have been very popular, because women are now saying, hey, things that you guys, men, have been creating all these years, I'm not comfortable with, and we want our own things, and women are going to make them. So feminine products for women are extremely high right now. So there's always different trends. Go do the research. Quick Google searches will actually tell you like what's trending and what's not trending. And then when you get all of these things, when you get, you've identified your passions and you've identified those skills and you've tried to solve some problems. And then from there, you're looking at those trends and you're like, oh, I think I have some ideas. Go brainstorm with some other people. Call your mentor, call your best friend, call somebody, your family, your friends. Now, you're going to get a mix here. Either some people are like, wow, that's huge. You could make a ton of money doing that, right? Or the other ones are going to say they're going to be the dream killers and they're going to be like, that's stupid. You should stay at your job, right? But also, you can reach out to other people. You could reach out to me. You could reach out to entrepreneurial groups. You could attend networking events. You can go and get a coach. You can get a consultant. You can go talk to people outside to get that outside perspective, to get kind of a fresh take on those ideas, to figure out which one may stick and which one maybe you need to kind of really maybe flush out or just pivot a little bit more, right? And then the next thing here is using creative techniques. So brainstorming techniques like a mind map is really popular, or a SWOT analysis. This is where you're looking at like your strengths and your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats. You can Google it, a SWOT analysis. It's really, really helpful for you guys to figure out like which ideas to lean into and move away from. There's another one, it's called the Scamper method. And that is like, you can substitute, you can combine, you can adapt or modify. And really you're putting one of those things into use, or you're eliminating or reversing, right? So it's a little bit different. You can Google all of these things, or you can reach out to me and ask more information about this specific information. But these techniques can really actually help you expand and even refine like your ideas systematically. I'm a big mind mapper. That to me is like my number one thing. I get it all out of my head and I put it all down, and I even do the bubbles. Like I like the bubbles. Like I learned it, I think in like 3rd grade, right? And I still do that. So that to me has definitely been one of my things. So, okay, great. So now you have all your ideas. And now you're like, okay, I think I have one good freaking idea that I'm going to run forward with. Now let's figure out, is it a good idea? Let's validate your business idea. And the best thing is, ask the market. The market will tell you they're interested in this, they're not interested in it, or maybe it needs some refinement in here, right? So conduct the market research. That's number one. Before diving into a new venture, before you start dumping money into anything, you have to refine and you have to do some market research here. It's essential to really validate that idea. Go through your market. So here on social media, obviously you can join groups. You can ask those questions. You can ask a coach. You can ask, like if your top 10 clients, you could go to them and say, hey, if I started this business, would this be something of interest to you? I used to tell my clients that were in more of the trades businesses, if they were going to start like a lawn mowing company, or if they were going to start a church, or if they were going to start they were going to open up a little store down the road, I would say, hey, you know what, go to that neighborhood and go knock on some doors and just ask them, hey, if I opened up a store like this, would you want to know about it? Right? And they're going to say yes or no. Just take a little survey. Would you want to know about this? Would this be something of interest? If I did open it, what service would you like me to provide? It's so important to do this, because they will tell you, yeah, I have no need for that. Or, yeah, I would really like that, but I would really like it to have maybe more of something else in the store if it was available, or this type of service that's needed. So conduct the market research. They will definitely tell you a lot. You're going to gain a lot of really good feedback specifically from that. And then from there, go analyze your competition, right? I'm always saying don't look left and don't look right. But in this situation, when you're starting a business, you need to know your top 5 to top 10 competitors, what they're doing, how they're doing it, what are they doing really well, and kind of where they're falling short. And then this is where you can say, okay, great, this is how I'm going to take all of this and reveal it. It's going to kind of reveal some opportunities here for you for differentiation. It's going to help you position yourself and your business more uniquely in the market. So this is really going to be able to help you. Look for those gaps, you guys. Look for the gaps that you can fill up, or ways to even improve upon an existing product or service. You don't have to go reinvent the entire wheel. You can just take the wheel and say, hey, you know what? Let me make it round instead of square. And let's see if it rolls better, right? You can do that as well. So the next one is looking to see if you can create a minimum viable product. So you'll hear this a lot. It's called MVP. And it's really just a simplified version of a product or a service that allows you to test your idea with minimal resources. So you'll see this a lot here in the digital space, where people are like, hey, I'm going to throw a course out there, or I'm going to throw a program out there, and I'm going to see if I can get any bites, right? If I can hook anybody in with this and see if it actually works. So developing an MVP actually really allows you to gather real world feedback and make those necessary adjustments before investing heavily into it. So you'll hear like a lot of the times people will say, oh, this is just in beta, or you'll hear something saying, and really beta means that they're just wanting to give you something and they want your feedback, right? And that's the most important piece to that for a business owner or an entrepreneur as they're starting a business, is that they just want feedback. So they will roll something out there in beta or pre-launch. It's kind of some of those things. So you can do that before you ever actually invest more money, before you go buy the software programs and do different things. You can go do that. Even if you're creating digital products, you guys, before you go invest heavily on a platform like Kajabi, or before you go invest in other platforms that can like email marketing or whatever it is, you can always go test this out. I love like Rachel Peterson's programs because they're so simple and it's done on such a bootstrapped budget. She takes a Google Doc and she says, hey, you know what? You want my free lead magnet? Great. Give me your email. Here's the Google Doc. When you buy into her programs, then she has them typically up on her YouTube and they're unlisted, so you don't see them, but she's selling you the unlisted video. So there's ways to do this without going and opening up a Kajabi account for $100 and something a month. There's ways to do this before you go invest all into this stuff, right? Depending on what type of industry you're in. So there's a lot of different free programs out there. So please, 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 before you go invest, like everything I look at is normally like $100 something a year or more, right? So make sure that before you invest, ask around, find out what other entrepreneurs are using for programs like email marketing or CRMs or, I can't even think of digital products, right? Like there's so many different things out here that there's just tons of free products and free platforms that you can already use without having to invest money. Most places also give you free trials or some sort of free version before you ever have to upgrade, right? So make sure you're doing your research on that. So the next one is you want to test that idea out online. So nowadays, yes, you can have the brick and mortar store, but before you invest in that brick and mortar, and I think most of my audience right now is they're either brand new business owners, they have an idea, or maybe they've been in business for like less than 3 years. I'm going to assume most people here on this platform. So that is kind of where at this point you really want to test your idea online. Now everything's online. Even if you want to really open up a brick and mortar store, a restaurant or something like that, make sure you test it out online first. Use the online platforms to gauge kind of the interest in your business idea. Like if you don't have to be on every single platform, but if you're not sharing it online, I suggest you definitely jump online, share it multiple times, not just once, to see what's going on, right? But create a landing page, run some social media ads if you have the budget to do that, or even start like a crowdfunding campaign where they can kind of help back that up for you. Monitor that engagement, look at your signups. You can do a wait list as well, and that also tells you kind of like where people are at. Are people interested in something or not? It allows you to be able to get some feedback, and then even just allows you to have access to the demand of that product or that service that you're thinking about starting. So it really allows for a lot of different things in here, but really it provides that measurable data to support that idea. Like, is it a good idea or is it not a good idea, right? So obviously seeking expert advice is always extremely important as well. Consult with your mentors, industry experts, people that have already been doing it, or business coaches who can help you provide that valuable insight and that feedback. Those outside perspectives are so important because you're in the mix. You're in it every day. You're thinking about it every day. You're investing your knowledge, your motivation, everything's in it. So sometimes it's nice to have someone step back and say, have you ever thought about doing it this way? Or how about you don't spend so much time batching, like creating content, taking an hour to create content. Maybe we teach you how to batch content, and then we teach you how to use a scheduler, right? Like there's other ways to do things. And I think that's where like outside perspectives can really help with those things. So their experience obviously can really help you identify kind of those potential pitfalls and refine that business strategy for yourself. So don't be afraid to ask for the guidance. I always offer a free discovery call. Most of my clients come on there with a problem with their strategy, and we're solving the strategy on that call. Like it's a working call. It's not just a sit back and chit chat and see if we like each other call. Like it's a straight up, like I'm going to work for you for 30 minutes to an hour, or whatever it is, right? So leverage that knowledge and even take advantage of that. So overall, you guys, developing and validating a business idea is a dynamic process, okay? It takes a lot. It requires creativity. It requires research. It requires strategic planning. And the way I keep it all together, just one little itty bitty tip here, use a project management tool. There's so many different things. Yes, there's Asana. That's a phenomenal tool that you could use. I actually just use a spreadsheet. Very, very simple spreadsheet. I do an Excel sheet and I'm putting a date on it and I'm putting what it is and when it's going to be done. So those are like the three things that all I'm focused on. And if I'm looking at one specific goal, then my entire thing is, let me break that down. Let me get that reverse engineer and reverse engineer whatever my goal is. So if I need to go get launch a product, my first thing is, let me reverse engineer and what are the things that I need to have in place before that is launched, right? So it requires that creativity. It requires the research. It requires the strategic planning. And I'm going to say that those three things over and over and over again, because really by identifying your passions and solving those real world problems, researching the market and testing your ideas and, you know, all of the other pieces that go into bringing something to the market, you can really increase the likelihood of your business's success. So remember that every great business really started with just a single idea. So none of your ideas are dumb. They just haven't probably been thought through all the way, and maybe we need to figure out how to hone it a little bit better. So if you're at that place right now, I really do want to invite you to schedule a call with me. I do have calls in the morning and in the evenings. And really, I can sit down with you and look at what you're working on and figure out maybe where you're spinning too many of your wheels. And we can get a plan for you right then and there. It won't be a full plan, but it'll be like, okay, this is the next thing I need to focus on for the next week or two and be able to help you out with that. So if that's something of interest to you, I do have a link in my bio and you can go ahead and schedule that right now. But if you have questions too, and maybe you just are not ready to get on a call with me, that's fine too. Just message me. I love to chat in the DM. I love to say hi to you guys and I love to get to know you. So if you have questions about anything that we've covered over here or something completely different, just reach out to me. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Oh, I do see one question on here, actually. What gets the most interaction with followers in your experience? Post, reels, polls. Does more engagement equal more followers? Ooh, good question. Okay, so I'm going to answer this before we go. Okay, so in my experience, it's kind of a mix. I think polls are extremely helpful to get engagement. Any of the engagement tools specifically on social media are extremely helpful because they're going to push out their own tools, right? So if you use the slider in your stories, or if you use a poll, or if you use a question box in your stories, it's extremely helpful. Now, if you're putting it on your feed and you're looking at how am I going to get more engagement, this is where you may want to ask a question. You're going to want to have some sort of call to action, and you're going to have to hook people in right then and there, right? And typically they tell you that you have, I don't know, what is it these days, 3 to 6 seconds to grab somebody's attention, right? Like, I'm probably not a big attention grabber. Most of my content is very much like this, but I do try to give a variety of things. So I like to be able to put a reel, I like to put a post, I like to put stories, I like to do a little bit of everything. And the reason I like that is because my clients are not just one type of client. I like to use the birds, right? So I've got eagles, I've got owls, I've got doves, and I've got peacocks, right? And so my birds are all different. And I'm kind of a 1%er of a little bit of all of those. I'm very analytical like the owl. I'm very eagle and I'm very driven, right? Like that eagle, right? The peacock, I'm very sociable, but the dove is very caring and helpful and quiet and a little bit more introverted. So I'm kind of like all of those. And I believe that a lot of my followers here, because we're all human, we typically have like an 80-20% here that, you know, you're 80% like a peacock and maybe you're 20% like a dove, right? Or however that combination is. If that's something of interest to you guys, I would love to do a course on the birds. I'm obsessed. FYI. So, but try to mix it up, play around with it. You know, when you're looking for more engagement or more followers, typically your followers, if you have 15,000 followers on your account, you only have typically 10% engagement from those. So you're only getting about 50 people that are actually seeing all of your stuff. Unless they're adding you to their favorites, then your stuff will be able to follow up there. And you're not going to know if they added you to their favorites, just so you know. So really, it's almost as important to be into their DMs and on their page and engaging in their content, their stories, and their posts and things like that, more than it is for them to be on yours, right? Because you can control going on theirs. You can't control them seeing your stuff. So go over there, have a conversation with them, go talk to them, and that's going to be able to help kind of get that that awareness of, hey, Cammie's here all the time, right? Joanna, you and I have known each other for, 4 or 5 years now, right? And I love that you asked that question, because I don't see your content ever unless I go to your page and I now visually see it. Now I might today, moving forward, because you're on this live, but most of the time I'm not going to ever see your stories, and I'm not going to see your content, because you're not constantly liking and I'm not liking your stuff. But I know that you're there because we've built a relationship, and that's the most important piece to this. Is you have to go build relationships. You have to be in the DMs, you have to be in the stories, you have to be able to do the Instagram conversations or Zoom calls or whatever that looks like to build that relationship. That is how you're going to be able to be seen. But not only, more important than that, know, like, and trust, right? I've never met you, Joanna, but you know what? I can guarantee that you trust me and I trust you, because we've built that relationship over the years, right? I mean, we know each other, like, we've never met in person, but we've had some Zoom calls about our kids and things like that, right? Never business, always kid stuff. And so that is some of the important pieces to hear, compared to Shelly that's on here. Shelly and I just had a conversation the other day where we were able to talk about where her business is and where she wants it to go. And we were able to kind of put together a few little strategic moves that she could do. And she was able to immediately go out there and do that, right? And she and I have also built a relationship. So those things are the most important to any of this. You have got to go build relationships. You've got to be in their DMs. You've got to be able to talk to their stories, because that's the only way they're going to get to know you, right? Don't assume because you had a reach of 15,000 people and 200 likes that they're going to see you next time. They're not. They're not going to see you, and they probably won't remember you. And so typically when I get 200 likes on a reel or a post or whatever piece of content is, I'm then going on to them and I'm saying, I'm looking at their content to see if there's an alignment there. And then from there, I'm saying, hey, I'm jumping into your DM. I'm like, hey, thank you so much for your support today. I really like your page. I see that you're doing this. What big projects are you working on? Now that's my opening conversation, right? Because I want to know what they're working on. What are they passionate about? Where's their head focus? For you, it might be completely different. Your mission might be completely different. It might be like, hey, I just want to connect with other moms, or I want to connect with other business owners or other women, whatever that may be. But you won't know what their mission is, like really here on Instagram, until you get into there and have a conversation. Even their stories aren't going to really tell you. Even their page is not going to tell you that stuff. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. If you have additional questions, I love that you asked that question. I'm glad that we got to spend some time to be able to go through that today. I hope that was really helpful. But if there's anything else, obviously my DMs are open, and I will chat with you guys soon. Thank you so much for joining in. Bye.